physically simulating.
Check this, he throws a rock. He has a rock. Yeah, throw the rock on the bike. I can't wait to see what happens. Yeah, a lot of guys paint their bikes with Montana spray paint since I started my DIY videos on my YouTube channel, and two of them are SpinDad and Monkey Shred. They have also YouTube channels. They painted their bikes, so let's find out what they did to the bikes and what they think about the Montana spray paint. And the first one is SpinDad, and that is his bike.
I built this bike, which I called the Trasher Bash Motivator Build, in conjunction with the other builders on the channel. And I painted this bike with Montana.
Yeah, check the paint job. That's a typical dish soap paint job, very easy to do. What you have to do is you have to spray the military green first. You have to splatter a lot of dish soap over the frame, paint the black, wash off all the dish soap, which acts like a mask. That's the result, and you're good to go.
Graffiti spray paint, as recommended by a viewer in a video that I did where I used Spray Dot Bike. And I was like, ooh, Spray Dot Bike works pretty good, but it's really expensive. Montana paint is like, it's a third of the cost. Someone said it's almost, if anything, it is exactly the same as Spray Dot Bike for a third of the cost.
Yeah, it's nearly the same. It's not as dusty as Spray Dot Bike, but it's also a graffiti color. And yeah, it's cheaper, like SpinDad mentions it in the video.
I said, why not? Let's give it a try. And because I did have a few people be like, this paint isn't strong enough to actually hold up to, you know, every time I ride this bike I'm on. I took it completely down to bare aluminum, and then I acid etch primered it, and then I did the Montana paint, and then did 2 cans worth of 2K clear coat. And then I wet sanded, buffed.
Yeah, keep that in mind. He used 2 cans of 2-component clear coat, and that's the key for the quality. You can't use only the Montana spray paint if you want to go high quality. A clear coat is a must, and he used a 2-component clear coat like I use in most of my DIY videos. And that's the second bike. It's done by Monkey Shred. He painted the Marin also with the Montana spray paint, and he did a little DIY tutorial how to paint with these cans. So let's find out how he painted the bike.
Use some Montana spray paint with some 2K clear. I'm not entirely sure that is meant as like a bike primer or whatever. It is a universal primer. So
yes, that's true. What he used is the Uni Primer from Montana. That's the Uni Primer with a white cap. You can use it for plastics. You can use it also for metal. But the better choice for the Marin as a steel bike is the metal primer with a rust red cap. That's made for metal. It's also rust preventing. So if you paint steel, that's your choice. Don't use the Uni Primer for these steel bikes. If you have aluminum, that's a good choice. But if you go on steel, the metal primer is the choice. And if you do helmets, Montana provides also a polystyrene primer, and that's a must, because if you use a normal primer, you can cause safety issues with the polystyrene. So please use this primer if you go on helmets and safety gear.
we'll see how that goes. And because I'm restoring the Marin, the Eldridge, at this time, I've gone for the F3000 Gold and the, what is that? The 7260 Meteorite. That is meant to be a fluoro red and obviously a grey. Now they're the Montana cans. Montana do not do a clear. I found the 2K Spray Max.
That's not 100% right. Montana provides also clear coats, but they call it varnish. They have a gloss varnish, also a matte one. The matte varnish I used in my latest video where I painted the Crystal Effects bike, and on top I added the Montana varnish matte. And yeah, if you want to go on a gravel bike or on a mountain bike, I recommend a 2-component solution like this, like the Spray Max, because it's much more durable, it's thicker. So that's a good choice if you go on a gravel bike or if you go on a mountain bike. You can use also other brands. There are different brands with a 2K solution. That's the one I use in my video. And also Monkey Shred uses for his paint job.
Now these two cans are £15 each. So half of this £60 budget.
Yes, the 2K clear coat is expensive, but you should buy it because the quality is much better. So invest some more bucks, maybe 15 to 20, and you're good in quality.
Okay, so first up for this trial, the primer, spray,
no,
pre-treatment,
no. Check the fork.
Montana cans, see how far.
Check this fork. The preparation is not good. There's still primer and paint on the fork, and that can cause bad trouble if you don't remove these primers and paints. And it's a steel frame, it's so easy. What you have to do is you have to do media blasting or sandblasting. It doesn't cost much if you have a steel frame or an aluminum frame. So invest these bucks and you are safe from any trouble with your paint job, because you invest a lot of time in painting these bikes. So invest some more bucks and it's much better and much easier to do.
Our 2 cans go. That's a nice spray on it. That's really nice.
Same goes for these parts. Some of these parts are powder coated, and there are powders where you can't paint over these powders with spray cans or with wet painting, because there's no adhesion between the powder coat and the primer, and you can't be sure if you have a powder on the frame where you can't paint over or not. So make sure you remove all these powders, the powder coating first with a paint stripper or with media blasting, and you are on the safe side. That's a risk, painting over these areas with spray cans, also with professional paints. I remove them to be sure that I can produce a good quality. Yeah, and check the top tube, the head tube. There's still rust on the head tube, on the bottom of the head tube, this brown area, and guess what happens when you paint over the rust? It will rust again, even if there's primer covers the rust, and it will flake off and peel off. It takes some time, but it definitely will. So take your time in sanding if you do sanding, or do the media blasting. Yeah, and make sure you can turn the frame upside down. It's much easier to spray the bottom of the bike, the chainstays, the down tube. So that's a good idea, to use a broomstick and to push the broomstick through the hole for the bottom bracket.
So I'm going to leave that as it is now. I haven't quite used the 2 full cans, but that is because, yeah, as I said, prep is really everything.
Very shaky.
And the camera doesn't focus.
Yeah, check this. That's exactly what I mean. Bad reactions with the paint underneath. That's a chemical reaction between the primer and the paint underneath. So yeah, make sure you do a good preparation, that you degrease the frame with a good degreaser, and all these steps prevent exactly these irritations of the primer.
You can just about see it. The paint has reacted with something I must have left on. But yeah, the paint seems to have reacted. That's not the paint's fault, that's my fault for not prepping as well as I should. I did wipe the frame down twice, the second time with...
Exactly. That's a lack of preparation, and that causes exactly this trouble.
white spirit thinners, but yeah, the paint has gone on super smooth. It feels really nice to use. The fan seems consistent. The finish seems smooth. I don't know if it's just my practice increasing. That does mean though I can get on with the fire red.
And one thing I have to mention, one advice from my side, you have to set the primer, you have to prep the primer before you can go on with any color. If you don't do a light sanding, there's no adhesion between the primer and the color itself. If you have a dry primer, if you want to go direct with the color on the primer, you have to go wet on wet. That means a wet primer and a wet color on top. If the primer dries, you have to do the light sanding with maybe 1200 to 1500 grit. And if you don't do it, you can run in trouble, and there's a chance that the color won't stick and it will peel off.
I'll just do the grey tomorrow. Fire red, F3000.
And you have to go wet on wet with the color. Don't stop in between. Don't dust these colors. Don't apply light dusting, because that can cause any irritations of the color and a lot of overspray. So you have to be fast. You have to be wet on wet if you apply these neon colors.
It is definitely more orange than red at the moment. I was kind of worried about that with the white base coat, with the white primer. I was thinking perhaps should have done a black underneath, light outside.
No, that's not okay. That's not right. If you do these neon colors, you have to use a white primer or a white base color underneath. So the black primer won't work because these colors are translucent. They are semi-transparent and won't work on a dark primer. So if you use the metal primer, like the rusty red metal primer, you have to apply a white first and then the neon colors.
It's more of a pinky orange than a fire red. That could be down to the base. Colour of white, I'm not sure. I'll have to do an experiment on that. But yeah, very dusty. Same with the sprayed up bike. Had to do a lot of cleaning up this morning. And also, well, it's gone on really well actually. Like, hasn't got the texture of sprayed up bike. Like these bar ends are super smooth.
Yeah, that's right. If you go wet on wet, you have a super smooth surface, very easy to use and easy to apply clear coat on top. And if you go a little bit dusty, you run in trouble because the pigments are very thick compared to other color pigments. And check out what happened to the fork.
In places, the hard to reach places, some of the around the bottle cage, it's a bit furry.
Furry. My dog is furry, but not the paint job.
And let's see if I can position that. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it, it's hard to tell, but in...
Yeah, check this. Look closer to the fork and there you can see exactly what I mean with dusty covering. And that's exactly what happened on the insides of the fork legs. And that's not good because you have to resand these areas and you have to repaint them.
You can kind of see it, but well, the camera really does not do this colour justice. But in here, in a hard to reach spot, the overspray looks like it kind of settled on it and dried as a powder, so it prevented any more paint somehow going on it. So I can just literally
check out the particles underneath the fork. You can rub it off, and that's exactly what shouldn't happen. So yeah, it's very important to go wet on wet, as I mentioned before.
Brush it off, and I'm like, actually, I'll tell a lie. There's nothing on the can to indicate spraying distance, but yeah, I'm finding probably about 10 centimeters in close.
Yeah, good spraying distance for the Montana spray cans is exactly this. That's the spraying distance you should use, and if you use this spraying distance, you are good with any color primers, also the neon colors and the Montana golds. So that's the distance you should use.
So, just watching the builder. You need to like activate it at the bottom, but I have been warned that the acrylic might need to dry out for a week, so I want to do a test run on the bar ends first.
Yeah, you have to activate the 2-component clear coat, and there's a red cap on top. And what you have to do is you have to push it in a valve underneath the can. Here you can see the valve. So what you have to do is take this cap, place it on the valve, and then push it as hard as you can. Make sure it penetrates the valve, and then hold it for maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Shake the can very well for minimum 2 or 3 minutes to mix these two components. If you don't do it, you won't get the full quality of the clear coat. It has to be mixed very well, so make sure you push this cap as hard as you can on the valve and mix it very well. If you don't do it, the clear coat won't be very effective and it won't have the full quality.
First, maybe on the stem, and see how it goes. Woo!
Woo! He's so excited. Yeah, I can feel it as well. It's very
Oh, it's got such a wide
nerve-wracking.
fan.
It's very nerve-wracking to apply clear coat. You have minimum delay, and in the 10th of a second, you can ruin the complete paint job.
On it. Okay, well, the good news is it doesn't seem to be reacting with that 24-hour dry acrylic. I've got this Marin decal on the Gerber.
Yeah, what I have to tell you also, and advise, if you use these decals, check them again. Don't apply them direct on the neon colors or on these Montana colors, because there can be air trapped underneath the decal and it looks a bit white, like little white drops. And to avoid that, what I can recommend is to apply a clear coat first, apply a thin layer of clear coat, and then apply the decal on top. And that prevents any air traps underneath the decal, and it looks much better than sticking the decal direct on the color.
It's not your usual decal. It seems to be, yeah. So I don't know how it's going to react.
He's so nervous. Just go ahead. You have to go ahead.
Last.
Much more color. You need much more color. Go wet on wet. Don't stop. That prevents a lot of overspray. That's not
Seems
good.
to be all right at the moment.
Much more. He needs much more for a glossy surface. That's not enough. It has to be applied much faster. Don't stop or you produce any overspray. And check the frame in the background. When you spray like this, you spray all the overspray on the frame. And that's also not a good position. Spray in the other direction, away from the frame and away from parts. If you spray like this, all the overspray from the can will settle on the frame and it will cause a rough surface. So make sure you spray in a direction towards a filter, an air filter or something like that, and not towards the frame you like to paint as well.
So there it is in natural light. You can really tell the difference now between the supposedly fire red decals and the fire red paint.
And that's exactly why I paint all my decals, to avoid any differences in between the colors. And I don't like the quality of decals as well. They are very soft. They are like chewing gum in some cases. And a clear coat or a paint can be very hard. And there can be micro cracks in the clear coat when you use these soft decals. And over time, the clear coat will crack in the area where the decal is applied. And for good quality, I paint all my decals. I use a decal as a stencil, as you have seen in a lot of my videos. I remove the stencil and I have a smooth surface. And yeah, that's like I do it, and that's what I recommend.
Yeah, it looks a bit odd. This Montana paint has just gone on so much easier than the sprayed up bike. I did spray really close to the frame, to the parts with the Montana. The fork, where I had that trouble with.
Yeah, check these areas. There's some areas with orange peel, and if you like to avoid the orange peel, what I recommend is do a light sanding of the colors. These Montana gold cans can be sanded, these colors can be sanded. Don't sand the neon colors, but normal spray paint like these, that's a normal red. You can sand it, you can do a light sanding with maybe 1500 grit. And when you have a smooth surface, a smooth color, the clear coat will look much better. Check the frame. Here are some imperfections, a little bit dust underneath the clear coat and a little bit of orange peel on the top tube. And if you like to avoid that, do a light sanding first and then apply the clear coat.
the overspray causing some dry patches and it not sticking. I just sanded that back and then went in real close in the, I guess.
Yeah, and check the bracket for, I think, a fender or something like that. There's a lot of overspray on top. And if you like to avoid that, you have to go wet on wet with the clear coat. These are these typical areas where you have a lot of overspray if you don't go wet on wet. And if you want to increase the quality in these areas, that's very important to apply enough color and to avoid the overspray.
I want to say crotch area of the fork. And it solved it. It sort of self-leveled, it tidied it up, and it didn't run. I've got no runs throughout this frame whatsoever. So I love how glossy it is. There is still parts of orange peel that you can see in the grey. So you could wet sand that out, I guess.
If you want to do wet sanding on the clear coat, you have to make sure you have enough clear coat on the frame or you will sand through the clear into the color and you can destroy the paint job. So a minimum are 2 thick layers of clear coat if you want to do a wet sanding and a buffing afterwards.
Sprayed up bike is so dry that it always leaves a textured finish. But yeah, the Montana, thanks for recommending it. It has gone on really, really, really well. At this point in time, I would definitely recommend it over sprayed up bike.
I think
Yeah, spin that again and now let's check his bike.
we can all agree that our areas of interest for damage over time is going to be 2 main areas. Down tube, beneath the down tube, that's this spot. And, because this is not a clutch derailleur, even if it was, the chainstay itself.
Yeah, hit it. Hit it with the chain. Hit the chainstay with the chain.
There is a little spot here that went down to primer, it looks like, but the primer didn't come off. That's pretty good. That's better than what I would have expected from what it was that people warned me about. But again, there's a lot more done to this than just Montana paint. There's the acid etch primer, there's the base coat, and then there's the absurd amount of clear coat on top of it. So essentially, this actually probably should be a review of the Napa 2K clear coat that I used, but anyway.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. If you use clear coat, you have a better quality because the thickness of the paint is better and you have a good protection. So make sure you apply also a clear coat, not only the color, and make sure it's a 2-component. If you use the 1-component clear coat, the layers are thinner and yeah, you have there's a much higher chance of chipping. And if you like to prevent that for gravel or for a mountain bike, the 2K options is the one you should choose.
Oh wow. And here's kind of where maybe problems would happen, but even still, like no chipped paint. Oh, here's a bunch of chipped paint. Oh wow.
Yeah, check these chips, and that's exactly what I mean. What you didn't do is sanding the primer. I can see it through the chips, and there's no good adhesion, no bond between the base color and the primer. And if you like to avoid that, do the sanding. It costs time, but it increases the quality. So a sanding with maybe 800 to 1200 grit is what you should do with the primer.
Look at all that. I don't know what that's from. Scratches. And for the price and the outcome that I got, definitely, I would 100% use Montana again for bike paint. The price is just so right.
Financial reasons.
Physically simulating.
Check this, he throws a rock. He has a rock. Yeah, throw the rock on the bike. I can't wait to see what happens.
Rock strike on the down tube of a frame.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I got any today. And I want to see how strong the paint really is. So the goal here isn't to smash the frame. It's just to like do that.
Bam! That's what you have to do with the rock. Bam, bam, bam!
And I'm not going to do it again because it chipped the paint.
Oh no.
That's a new paint chip. And that's a new paint chip. Montana Gold paint for your bike is fine. Don't actually throw rocks at
Yeah, that's it. And don't forget to sand the primer if you want better quality than SpinDad has on his bike. And maybe you're able to dig a little rock on your paint job if you do the sanding. Don't throw it. Paint job's not able to stay against these rocks because they are too hard. They will chip anyways, the paint jobs. And yeah, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.